piece of me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
I am.
What up, film fans? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to this brand new episode 342. Welcome to The Wrestler. You're listening to a new episode of the Cine-Men movie podcast. I am one of your hosts, Juan, and I'm here joined by Jay.
How's it going, guys, out there in podcast land?
Man, what a week it's been. It's been a crazy week, but how was your week?
Oh, not too bad. Enjoying the weather. Enjoying it going back and forth between hot and cold. You know, one day it's 85 degrees to 89 to 90, and then the next day it's in the low 50s. Like, okay. So, enjoyable.
It has been a wild, wild week. It's also been a weather Tuesday here in the Midwest, here in at least Oklahoma City. It is a Tuesday night, April the 1st. So, welcome to a new month. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Welcome to a new month. It is April Fool's Day. So that being said, we're not doing an episode today. You thought we were. No, I'm just messing with you.
Or
are we? I don't know. I've never celebrated April Fool's Day. You have any April Fool's like history, or have you ever pulled like a big prank?
No, I it's always been those stupid little like, oh, something, and then, oh, April Fools, just something stupid and minor. No elaborate pranks, no, gotcha moments. I'm not that clever. So,
Yeah, me neither.
So, hey.
Yeah. Same. Not big in celebrating too much. If you're a wrestling fan, usually the month of April means WrestleMania. So,
oh, yeah.
I think that's what is going to be going on in a big month of April. So, look for a maybe prediction show or a post show. Just not even really a show. Just us hanging out and talking about what's going to happen or what did happen.
What have we got? At least 3 shows that week. We got or 4 shows if you technically count SmackDown. You got SmackDown, NXT. And 2 nights of WrestleMania that weekend, and then if you count the Hall of Fame, we have a lot to talk about that weekend.
Yeah, NXT. You have 2 NXT shows because you also got Takeover or whatever they call it now. What do they call it? Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, man, but that's a terrible name. What do you think?
They've used that name for a while now.
Yeah,
I grew up with the movie Stand and Deliver, so it's just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, see, yeah. Yeah, not a big fan of it. I feel like there's way more Takeover memories than there is ever going to be anything in the future.
Who knows?
Speaking of wrestling, what we're talking about today, we are talking about 2008's The Wrestler. This is going to be a fun episode. Since I've started this podcast, this has definitely been a movie that has always been on my bucket list of podcasting. So I think it's going to be a fun conversation, hopefully. Usually when you podcast, you like to have multiple personalities on, or different opinions, but Jay, I think we're a 2-man band today.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty. In my opinion, at least in my book, it's a very very good movie, teetering on great.
I could agree with that. There it is. Today's episode, guys.
Get it out.
Yeah. If you guys want to listen, last week we discussed and talked all about The Substance, which I thought was a phenomenal conversation. If you guys want to go back, you can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts at: Spotify, Anchor, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, and through the Prescribed Films Network. That's www.prescribedfilms.com. We are on a network. You can check us out there and on their Apple podcast. So just type in Prescribed Films Network on Apple Podcast and listen to yours truly. You can listen to Attack of the Killer podcast, the Movie Defenders, as well as us too. So, and you're watching us on Facebook Live, Mr. Wall Productions YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe, click the notifications, hang out, come talk to us every Monday or Tuesday now. I'm sorry, Tippy Top Tuesday. That's what we're calling it, Jay.
Okay, Tippy Top Tuesday.
Tippy Top Tuesday. Friday the 14th podcast is, we're in between seasons right now. So we were supposed to start last week. April is a busy month for wrestling podcast and wrestling tacos. So we are going to wait till WrestleMania is over. And season 8 of Friday the 14th podcast will take place on the first Thursday of May.
Okay.
So if you guys listen, subscribe, and watch that, go ahead and keep up with that. But yeah, let's get ready to dig in and talk about what we're talking about today. So don't forget, guys, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Today we're talking about The Wrestler. Had a release date of December 17th, 2008. Currently on IMDb, it has a 7.9 on IMDb, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Metascore is 80, and then the Letterboxd is a 4.1 out of 5. With a $6 million budget, man, this grossed a little over $45 million at the box office. A faded professional wrestler must retire but find his quest for new life outside the ring with a dispiriting struggle. Starring Mickey Rourke, Marissa Tomei, Rachel Evan Wood. You also have some appearances in there from some other actors, independent wrestlers as well. Directed by the great Darren Aronofsky and written by Robert Siegel. So let's kind of dig into it, man. All notes out the window. When's the first time you seen this movie, and what was it like revisiting it for the podcast?
The first time I seen this movie, I was just getting ready to get into the wrestling business, and I had friends in it because we were doing backyard wrestling at the time. And when you're a wrestling fan, any movie or subject that has to do with wrestling that appears to be mainstream, you have to be like, oh shit, you take notice. And I don't know about you, but I took notice because the first news I ever heard about this movie was that they planned on casting Nicolas Cage as the lead role of Randy the Ram. And there was even a point where I read that Nicolas Cage and Darren Aronofsky went around at least Ring of Honor, I think CZW and a couple other independent federations together, and they looked around and they talked to the boys and stuff like that. And that kind of gave Cage an idea of what to expect from the role, what he had to do. And then things happened, conflicts, and schedules or some shit like that happened, and then Mickey Rourke was given the role, which I think Mickey Rourke did a great job at the role.
Yeah, we'll get into it. It's kind of like us, reflecting off of what happened last week with Demi Moore. So we'll kind of compare the two this week. The first time I seen this movie, well, what was it like revisiting it? Quick, short answer.
Oh, excellent, as always.
I first watched this movie. I was working at FYE, and same thing. If you're a wrestling fan, you kind of keep up with maybe new shows or movies that maybe have to do with wrestling. Kind of enjoyed it. I didn't think it was I thought it was pretty good. This movie definitely grew on me as I watched it and became more of a film enthusiast. I'll use that word as the years went on. So I definitely think it gets better with age, and it gets better with more viewings. It's not like a complicated story or anything. It's just, I think you appreciate it maybe a little more with more viewings.
I think you understand it more with as the life progresses too.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people go back and when you watch something like this, you automatically start thinking about professional wrestling. But with more views that I got into it, honestly, the film aspect became a lot more in tune with me, if that makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, we can dig into it. When these movies come out, are you a fan of how, not only the exposure some of them get, but maybe also the well, I guess the exposure, not only that it does to the business. I know a lot of people were like kind of questioning like should certain scenes be in, and you know you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, from what I've seen, it kind of has parallels of like, from Jake Roberts' life. Like you know what I mean, the daughter, the lost daughter, trying to rekindle that and everything like that. That comes across very Jake Roberts to me. And then
Yeah.
Randy the Ram, Randy Savage, of course. He doesn't move from the top rope. So did Randy Savage. And it's Randy the Ram is an amalgamation of everything that wrestling is. The big, thick guys, the long blonde hair. And even his greatest rival was a take on the Iron Sheik, the Ayatollah.
Yeah, which I think they did a good job trying to make you very convinced that can remembering throughout the whole movie. Hey, he's from the '80s. He's an '80s wrestler. Even the opening montage with the music and stuff.
Well, the music throughout sets the tone because to me it sets the tone of anytime you hear the music, whether he's at the strip club, whether he's in his car, at a show, anywhere, it's a soundtrack of his life at the time that he was hot. It's him trying to keep that spirit and that nostalgia and that feeling alive in his heart. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, I didn't this time around. I don't know if it was just me, but using independent wrestlers for the independent wrestling scenes, I know it's a lot faster and it's a little easier to do those like wrestling scenes, and but I wish they kind of maybe would have went the A24 route with the Von Erichs movie and used maybe, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Like I feel like these wrestlers were maybe too generic in the ring because some of their acting skills were just. And again, I don't know. Maybe that's the script that was written for them, but I just.
He wanted authenticity. He wanted the legit
Whoa.
boys. He wanted them talking the way the legit boys do.
Well,
And
he got it, but he also got a legit sign of no acting skills.
oh well, hey, you get authenticity. It's the whole thing is I never found it to be awful acting. I looked at it as a fly on the wall where a camera just has to be. I look at their hidden cameras and they're just recording these boys' conversations.
Yeah, but in the ring, beside not counting Mickey because he, again, I'm gonna probably step on some toes when I talk about him being surrounded by maybe just an awful cast and maybe he stood out amongst people. And I know he got like praised so many months later at the Oscars, but I think he was just, again, I don't know. I would have liked to see them take the route of like maybe what A24 did and just maybe surround themselves with a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like you have people,
What you're saying, but
like you have people in there like
aspect of it.
like Chavo, some AEW guys were in that movie. Like the budget was a little bit bigger, if that makes sense.
It was, but we got the $6 million, right?
Yeah, $6 million budget.
Hey, when you're able to use the boys and you have the boys you have an entire locker room of boys that are enthused. Oh, you want us to appear in the movie? They're not going to ask how much you're going to be paid. So that right there takes off your budget. So
Yeah.
there is no, you know what I mean? There's like, so you got to like, well, shit, I could like hire professional actors. I need like 20 of them to fill up my locker room and make it look big. And that'll cost, scale pay for, a scale actor is like $300 or $500 per day per actor. And then you're like, you don't have to pay these guys shit. You know what I mean? They're just, hey, we're just going to use you guys in the background. Okay. I got to be in a movie today. So, hey.
True. I mean, they probably didn't even really get paid for it. They probably just got,
a hot dog and a handshake. Just
there you go. Mickey Rourke just definitely this time around watching it definitely did stand up and above beyond everybody else in the match or in the whole show, just in general. Um, I didn't mind also the way he was like portrayed. I know a lot of people when it first came out was like, why does a wrestler always have to be portrayed as a bad dad? Why does he always have to be portrayed as a junkie, using and abusing? He can't let the business go. So I know there were
Because all
some
those things you just said is because a lot of these guys cannot do any of those things. And they done those things. They lived those things because that was a time, an era that they were performing in.
yeah. Which are you? I'm kind of glad, like 20 years later, almost that's not the predecessors of like professional wrestling. That like now there's still shows in like a bingo hall and somebody's backyard and a gym, but now it's like it's seen a lot differently than what it was maybe even 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's always an ever evolving business. It's because the locker rooms now, and you should know this, the locker room now compared to the '80s locker room. '80s locker room was a rambunctious group of men put together with drugs, sex, rock and roll, and alcohol. And when
Well,
I
I'm
mean
even
drugs, they were on hardcore candy, the
well,
cocaine.
yeah, but I'm even talking about independent wrestling locker rooms like 10 years ago.
Well, I was kind of in those locker rooms about 10 years ago, at least in the Midwest area, Oklahoma and Texas and everything. People smoked weed, but I never said anything more hardcore than that. You had your little ring rats. You did have, and after seeing the wrestler, you did have your hanging on wrestlers that they should have hung it up years ago. And they're what they in the business is what they call weekend warriors. Is that they never made it big. They just wrestled on the weekends.
Yeah.
And they never turned a profit in the business. They were just holding on to I get to go out there and perform every weekend, which every guy that I met in this business has that. I even had that dream. So I understand the Mickey Rourke character a little bit, on the performer side because I've been on that side of the table where I myself is like, well, I hurt like shit and I've had a long day, but they want me to referee 8 matches tonight. Like, what the hell, really? And then you start talking to the boys and you start hearing that there's not going to be a referee that night if somebody doesn't show up. And then nobody ends up showing up, so you're like, the hell with it, I'll do it. Next thing you know, your beat up ass is out there working 8 matches.
You're like, let's pick a homeless guy from the crowd and he can be a referee.
They've kind of almost done that at some shows that I've been to.
They have. It's kind of.
But I've been on that side of that aspect of where, you just, like I said, you're just like, shit, I don't want to ruin the show. I know how to do this job. Well, okay, I'll do it. Even though, it's that I'll give to the business mentality.
Are you a big Ornosky fan?
A little bit. I like the wrestler, but after hearing his take on his Batman reboot, I was like, but his movies haven't been too bad.
Yeah. For everybody who's kind of just listening and not really, his latest success was The Whale a few years ago. He did Mother, Noah, Black Swan, The Wrestler, The Fountain, Requiem for a Dream. So he's had a pretty good filmography. I'm still astonished that his back-to-back movies were The Wrestler and Black Swan.
Black Swan was pretty good too.
Very, very good. And we'll get to it when we talk about the ending, but a lot of his movies just have those cut-off endings that you just get splashed with, and that's how this one ends. But this movie is just so fun to sit, and you don't even really have to try to dissect it because, like we said, he's got a few matches leading up, and then he wants to do at the beginning of the movie, you hear that Randy the Ram is being asked to do like a sequel or return match to a match that he had famous like in the Garden supposedly like 20 years ago in the 80s, and that's his end goal by the end of the movie. But you also see
that moment. Yeah, he wants to relive that moment again.
But I mean, stuff like that is just kind of funny. Like looking back at it now, that'd be like The Rock and Hogan having their rematch in like a bingo hall. You know what I mean?
Very
Like it
true, but
it goes from like the Sky Dome and then like the rematches and
but
like
hey, you've been a part of a wrestling fan for a very large time. Sit there and think of what are some of these matches that you truly love that are very huge matches in considering in wrestling, and look how large the size was before they took place.
yeah.
Like 600 people in a bingo hall. That happens. You know that happens.
Oh yeah.
Ring of
Or
Honor.
or
Ring
inside
of
of a
Honor was built on that.
a school gym with 20 people.
Hey, WWE in the mid '90s was running high school gymnasiums. Diesel was the champ. So was Bret Hart. They were running high school gyms.
Let's talk about the chemistry between Mickey Rourke and Marissa Tomei in this movie. Like,
Marissa Tomei's performance, before we talk about their chemistry together, her performance is amazing. She
you know,
has all these little nuances in her face. She does a lot of acting with her face. Like, she does a lot of acting with her eyes in this movie because she sat there. As far I've been to the strip club. I know how they work. I've been around wrestlers, and they sit there and say the closest profession together is wrestling and strippers is that they both go out there and they give performance for money, you know. And there's always a work. There's a stage name. They're going out there performing moves for an audience. And so they
so I kind of wish this movie had a little bit more, like, not really backstory, because you can kind of tell they kind of like been not really maybe lovers, but they've always had that feeling back and forth. He was always just technically a customer, and but I kind of wish that maybe there was a little bit more to them than meets the eye.
I kind of looked at it that he had to as much attention that as he got from fans. The attention that he got was never true attention, so he had to pay for that true attention. And the
Yeah.
only attention he ever got was from Marissa Tomei's character. That was, and he had to pay for that. And that was the only person he thought he had a real, true connection with, was somebody he was paying.
So he obviously is still making pretty decent money then, as like you said, a weekend warrior, because at the beginning of the movie, he's getting his hair done, he's getting his tan, he's getting all this stuff. He's going to the grocery store
Yeah,
buying weapons for a
you're going
hardcore
through a
match.
week. You're going
So
to how
he
he sets up his lifestyle as a
right.
wrestler.
So he's obviously making what he needs to, but then he gets he has the old heart attack.
Oh yeah.
The cliche heart attack, hitting the gym too hard, hitting his asshole with like steroids and stuff. So he's having a little too much fun,
But
drinking,
this isn't
smoking, whatever.
his first time at the rodeo with the roids. Just, you know what I mean? If he's a wrestler of the 80s, especially looking at his body style and everything like that, I guarantee you this isn't his first rodeo, with the steroids.
I was kind of surprised this movie was only nominated for 2 Oscars, which was Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role for Mickey, and then Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role with Marissa Tomei.
How was she the supporting role?
That's it. I'm guessing the daughter was lead in this movie.
I'd say
So,
Marissa was lead, but okay.
and looking in the credits, yeah, I don't know. So she's not the lead actress, according to the Oscar nominations. Um, I was surprised Darren Aronofsky didn't get no kind of recognition for his directing, because this definitely is a movie that you can tell has his stamp like all over it. So,
Oh yeah, but it also has that feeling of very much a documentary of being a pro wrestler. It feels like you're watching just a guy trying to rekindle his love and spirit from when he was younger, and ultimately, I don't know, that ambiguous ending. Does he ultimately fail, or does he succeed? Does he get his one last? Does he get a sequel? For the
yeah.
most part, yeah. For the most part, yeah. But would it be the first time a wrestler died in the ring? Oh no. It's happened before. So it's not a complete stretch that him passing away at the end of the movie of a heart attack in the middle of the ring is anything beyond a stretch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I'm kind of interested in maybe looking towards more of like the uh, not really the backspace of the relationship of the Mickey and his daughter, or Randy the Ram and the daughter, but like you said, very Jake the Snake Robert esque. But uh, I don't know. I kind of feel like this movie almost didn't need that story. I feel like if they would have just concentrated a little bit more on him and Tomei, and maybe Tomei is the person that lost the relationship or never got the relationship with him, I think I would have liked that a little bit better. I don't know.
Well, I think the reason why they added the daughter is because, most wrestlers, could sit there, that most of them have kids, and, most of them, I know it seems cliche and everything, but it's a universal story in that community that a lot of these men have kids or women, have kids, and a lot of these kids grow, at least at that time period, when, let's say, Randy the Ram worked for the fictitious, he worked for WWE back in the day, or, WWF. And, let's say, or it was taking place in like the NWA or something like that. He would be constantly on the road. He'd at least be on the road about 300 days a year. And you'd sit there and say, well, what about those 65? Well, they're not always together, He could probably be home on a Monday for 1 week, and then, in the following week only 2 days. So they had a very strenuous schedule back in the day. And so when she sat there and tells him that, you were never there for any birthdays, because you missed them all. You were there. You missed all my important moments. It's because he was giving everybody else's children moments when he couldn't give his own children moments.
Yeah. What do you think of the hardcore match scene?
It's just, I thought it was another layer of, it starts off because we get 3 main matches in the show, but we actually get 4. We get an imagination match at the beginning of the show when it sits there and shows us, the original, Ayatollah versus, Randy the Ram match. And this is a match that we just see through photos and posters, but, hearing crowd responses and everything like that through the montage, we get an extra match from our imagination.
Yeah.
And then we get the first match where, here he is now. He was living the big life, and now here he is on the indie scene in front of, 300 people. And, it's just some basic match with their little title and everything. And then you get to see that he has to work hardcore matches as well. So that's his third match. So here's a guy that's supposedly a legend, and he's having to put his body through this hell, at this age,
Shows you the
because right after that match, he has the heart attack.
yeah, but it shows you like, is he desperate? He didn't really seem like he wanted to go through that.
See, that's the thing. When you're trying to do something you love and continue that, to have that, what they call in the business, that pop. You're trying to chase that pop. It's like a drug. You don't care what you have to go through unless you get that drug. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And none of it matters until you get that pop. And once you get that pop, you'll continue chasing it. So, and I think that's because when you sit there and remember that scene where they're at that little fan fest, and he's sitting there with all those old timers, he's looking around, and like most of them are like a wheelchair, cane, one has a colostomy bag, and he's just sitting there like, oh my god. And I think he kind of realizes, he's like, oh my god, this is my life, but I can't. But then he kind of also decides that I think I can hang it up here, because that's when he decides to retire. Not too long after that.
Yeah, but if he didn't have the heart attack, he wouldn't have tried to decide to retire.
Exactly. He would have continued chasing that dream. Well, look, okay, right now, Ricky Morton's like in his 70s, dude, from the Rock and Roll Express. He's still wrestling. I think like a month back, he won some belt in Florida, their heavyweight championship in Florida.
That's like, what does Apollo Creed say? Stay in school and be a thinker, not a stinker. Because I mean, even at the end of the wrestler, you see his rival or whatever from back in the day has like a used car lot, and he doesn't have to wrestle anymore. His new high is like selling used cars.
Exactly. So, he's moved on from the business. We're running to the rim. Like I said, he's still chasing that high.
Chasing something.
Because sit there and look, he tries to. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but whenever he was starting one of his first shifts after he'd retired at the grocery store, and he's walking from like the employee blocker room all the way down to the the showroom downstairs, and there's a crowd. There's a faint crowd roar over his walking and set down the stairs all the way down to the floor. And when he gets that plastic curtain before he walks out on the supermarket floor, and there's crowds, but once he walks through it, there's no more crowds. So it's almost like he's psyching himself up. Listening, you know what I mean? But when he walks out through those curtains, he's not Randy the Ram.
You talking about the curtains going into the meat deli shop?
Yeah. It's him just, psyching himself up, but when he opens that curtain, there's no pop. It's real life.
Yeah, or like he's giving the salami some elbow. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the only things about the movie that always puzzled me was why he did it, was why he stuck his finger in the damn blade at the deli. I don't get that part, but whatever.
Yeah. I know he was trying to hurry and get out of that situation from that guy being like, "Hey, aren't you Randy the Ram?" Elbow drops in the ring, now elbow drops in the deli.
But it was a pretty gory little scene once what I liked about that aspect of the scene, though, is that he made sure to milk it. Like he said, there was blood on his face, got blood everywhere. There's blood all over the aisle as he's walking away. A
little over the top.
Exactly, but that have to be a wrestler dramatic scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do like how they use like CZW and Ring of Honor in the movie, because obviously those companies were probably like, "We're in a movie, come shoot here for free," probably.
Oh yeah, I guarantee they may have gotten a little bit of help to make for production reasons that day to make the movie a little bit brighter for the movie.
Yeah,
but other than that, they probably got a hey, thank you in the credits.
Yeah, so.
But hey. I helped run a promotion in Oklahoma City a little bit, and I wasn't the owner, but I helped help with the promotion. And if somebody came up to Hollywood producers come up to us at that time, like, hey, we'll let us use your stuff, and we'll put you in our movie. I'm like, okay, we probably would have done it too.
Yeah, but then you get some of the fun scenes where like the neighborhood kids come and bug with him, and they play like the little video game with him. He gives Marissa Tomei the little Randy the Ram action figure.
But her kid actually liked that action figure.
Yeah. I think before he gets his heart attack, you get the pharmaceutical scene where he's buying the drugs off of the guy that has just like the suitcase upon drugs.
If I'm not mistaken, in real life, homeboy did get arrested for doing that shit.
That's funny. That's funny. Spare no expense, Darren Aronofsky said.
Yeah, they were like, we want a real drug dealing wrestler. They got one, But oh yeah, that scene right there. I don't, to some wrestlers that scene probably rings very true, but around a lot of the some of the wrestlers that I was around. Yeah, there's no way these guys could afford their steroids, and you could just look at it and be like, there are no roids in these guys' body. More like chicken grease and fat, but yeah, because you've seen some of these guys around the area that we live.
I'm no Schwarzenegger by all means, but that's one thing I'm going to take the focus off of this movie and still kind of talk about independent wrestling, but / the movie, and like that's kind of one thing I have kind of like always seen in like. Whether it be the Midwest, maybe like Kansas, Oklahoma, some parts of Texas, but some parts of Texas, they also like really take care of themselves. But like, it's just tough, like whether it be like life in general, but like when you go to a lot of these independent shows, it's like, man, there's almost, I mean, I'm not, judging or anything.
The part of a wrestler.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're doing this 24/7, or at least 48 hours out of the week, I'm like, man, where does the control come from? Or, I'm just like, you would think
what you're checking out most likely are weekend warriors.
Yeah. It's like, man, can you fit maybe like an extra 8 hours in that week, buddy, to go to the gym? And I'm not saying I'm not going to go and not enjoy a show, but it's just like we as fans or now watching the product, whether it be on TV, YouTube, in person, or anything, it's almost like watching professional football. Like if you're watching you know, a high maintained wide receiver or quarterback, and they're getting paid, money to. Well, I can't really compare an NFL player to uh, an independent wrestler, really. Yeah, but I mean, at least I'll be like, man, if I'm in there and showing off and trying to do that Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Thursday, I would at least try to maintain some kind of imitation. When you're lacing up the boots or something. I don't know, but it's independent wrestling can be either really good or really, really terrible, and we can probably both attest to that.
Oh, I've been to some terrible shows in my day.
It's
I've been
almost
to,
like how did this guy get a ring, and who let him into this high school gym?
well, a lot of it is they have a little quote in the business about tax time promotions. A certain wrestler or a group of wrestlers get their taxes back and they start their own indie company up and have like one or two shows and then there's nothing left.
Oh, that sounds like something out of Lawton. Oh,
Well, they had a bunch of shows. I can give them that credit. They had an actual TV deal and internet. I can't knock them. They tried something. They swung and they didn't make it. But hey,
hey, they just got to find another business to launder in, I guess.
hey,
Tattoo shops or something. I don't know. Uh, there's a
see,
lot of
that's the wrestling business. See, you've been around it, so you know. You can kind of tell how factual this movie is. They probably didn't give you how gritty the wrestling business was.
he wasn't only selling hot dogs in that gym.
Oh no, see,
I I also like adore this movie just because of the visual aspects and to me the cinematography in this movie is better in this film than maybe any other movie about wrestling in general.
oh yeah.
The way he's just shot, whether he's going into a club, he's walking out of the curtain, jumping off the rope. The cinematography to me is just really, really good.
Oh yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of center framing in this movie because I
yeah,
noticed it while watching. There's a scene where there's Evan Rachel Wood when he's talking to her while they're walking down the street arguing, but the far foreground you can still see his van. His van is in frame, like real small in the foreground. So I was like, okay, and it just gives a kind of a scale of how each location is, because in a wrestling arena, depending on where these independent companies run, so the places may look huge on film, but when you show up in person, there's legit only room for like 200-300 people in that building. And a lot of these places that most top independent promotions run probably don't hold no more than 1,500 people.
I think it's just like promoting, whether it be like this state or I can't really speak for any other states, but I just think it's lazy. You have to go out of your way almost to find them. Like I've always been told, you don't make money unless you spend money, and like a lot of at least in the movie, it's kind of the same thing here. Probably just like, let me get on the phone and make some Facebook flyers or make some paper flyers and stick them to telephone poles. But like, man, it's probably hard now since COVID had happened and everything, but you could spend probably money upon money on advertising, and it's just like nobody shows up.
Oh, I've seen it where a company, the last show they did, there was 600 people at that last show, but then the next show there's like 30 people. You're like, how does that? That's a huge jump in gate. But then the following show there's another 300 people. You're like, what happened? So you got, as a promoter and booker, you got to look around town and be like, well, what's going on around my city, or that weekend that I book it.
Yeah,
Because wrestling 101 don't book during the fair.
well, yeah, and I think it's also about placement. Like you have to really pay attention to what side of town you're going on. Like, are you always staying between Southwest 29th and Northwest 10th? If so, you should probably get out of that area. Um, and then
Exactly,
again,
that's a location. Well, ECW was ran in a very very sketchy part of Philadelphia.
yeah, but I mean let's be honest. Oklahoma fans are not Philadelphia fans.
Agreed.
Oklahoma fans just are. It's a different breed of people. You could put Goldberg on the show, and you're either going to have a really good night or a really bad night. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just Oklahoma City and Oklahoma in general is like one day you're going to have like 10 people, the next day you might have like 500 people.
Well, see, the thing, me and a wrestler buddy of mine, Sam Stackhouse, we sat there, we've been on the road together a lot. And one of the things we discussed on the road was, how come we don't get none of the, the Ring of Honor guys in Oklahoma and stuff like that? And we sat there, we kind of, discussed, and it came to the conclusion that they don't sell here in Oklahoma. You get a guy like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jimmy Hart, some old school 80s cat, early 90s guy, and throw him on your card, a lot more people will show up if you got Colt and if you got Colt Cabana to show up. You might have 600 people show up, but you get Greg Valentine to show up, you might have 1,000, which is weird.
It's I think it shows you the man. Probably some flack if anybody's out there, but probably some knowledge, or maybe just that shows you the. Man, can I say knowledge of these Oklahoma fans?
Well, I don't know about knowledge. It's just that it's the style of wrestling here in Oklahoma is a lot. It's more of a brawl style state. You know what I mean? They don't mind storylines. You can get invested in storylines, but they have to be real. They just
They're like,
it's a weird hillbilly mix, bro.
Oh no, you said it right on the money. You could have something.
They tick back down.
You could have something that's completely terrible. You put the letters Mid-South on it, and it's the greatest thing ever. No, it's not.
Yeah.
The Mid-South that you've probably seen in the last few years is nothing like probably in the 80s or the 70s. So
exactly, you had
chill.
Ted DiBiase working for Mid-South back then.
And people think like, oh, it's the same thing, same company. No, it's not. Like, step away. Go watch your YouTube.
Here's the thing, though. It doesn't matter the talent you got sometimes, because look at WWE when they were using FCW in Florida as their training ground, and WWE could barely get 50 people to show up and watch the new talent like Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. Nobody was showing up to watch those guys.
But again, I think it's because of where maybe, they had been fed some of that Florida stuff and that Florida crap before. And it's not until they started rebranding and changing the name maybe that they're like, oh, this is something new. But it was just repolished with FCW guys, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, it's like, it's just a weird concept how, even WWE has had that promotion to where they could barely draw 50 fans. And they got some of and at the time they have the people now that are leading the charge. So it's weird.
So back to the Oscar nominated film, The Wrestler. I'm surprised you can catch this out on Disney Plus.
Oh, is it on there?
It's on Disney Plus, Hulu, because it's a 20th Century Fox movie.
Okay.
So, yeah, to me, I think Marissa Tomei should have won her Oscar for this year. And
she was great this movie.
Yeah, I didn't like the actress who played the daughter, Evan Rachel Wood.
I was indifferent on her. She was all right.
Yeah. Everybody else was just kind of fun. The independent wrestlers that were in there, a lot of fun to watch. Mickey Ward just completely steals his thunder. Steals everybody's thunder, man, and he just goes in there and just knocks it out. Kind of like how we talked about Demi Moore last week. He had, that renaissance of a career in the 80s and early 90s, kind of flew off, and then, this was his comeback movie, and he had a few other roles after that, and
he got to be an Iron Man 2 because of this movie.
Yeah, he got to be in some of the Expendables movies.
Mm-hmm.
So
because of this movie,
yeah,
his face is rough as hell.
He's a rough-looking cat, man, but I think he reminds me a lot of Dog the Bounty Hunter. So
he does in this movie, yes.
Yeah. You have a favorite scene of the wrestler before we try to get out of here? I'll go first. I think probably my favorite scene of the wrestler would probably be where he finishes up the grocery store. He cuts his thumb, but I also enjoyed where he's working and he's kind of enjoying the grocery store scene where he's like, calling everybody sweetheart. What else can I get for you? He's trying to make that his duty. He's trying to have fun with it. So I enjoyed that scene. And then if I had to pick another scene, where him and Marissa Tomei actually have like their date. They go shopping together. They stop and have a beer. I think that's a really good organic chemistry scene between the two. And if I had to pick an in-ring scene, maybe um, It's weird for it being a wrestling movie. I like more scenes of him out of the ring than I do in the ring. But I would probably pick the first match that you see, kind of giving you some backsides of the business and the way the matches run. And then him, I think it was bid with the Ernest the Cat Miller right at the end,
Yeah.
in the Ring of Honor ring. I thought that was a pretty good. And I love the way how he was always so stuck out on coming out to his Quiet Riot song. I loved how he switched it up, and this was going to be his last match. He came out to the Guns N' Roses song, so I like that ending. Marissa Tomei came out and seen him. What about you? What's the favorite scene for you?
Um, I also enjoy the scene with them on their little date because the chemistry in that scene is very interesting. It's very you can feel it through the screen because he's always kind of felt it to her. He has a soft spot for it. In that moment, she kind of lets her guard down. She kisses him back. She really feels in that moment that there could be something there, and you feel it all in just her body language. When she gets more passionate with the kiss, and then all of a sudden you see her tense up and let go. All that's played beautifully in that scene. And I don't want to sound gross or nuts, but any scene with Marissa Tomei at the strip club, that girl is absolutely gorgeous in this movie. Like 10 out of 10. I don't know what it was, but I found her more stunningly beautiful when watching it this time around. Like when I was watching, I was like, oh my god, how is it this? Because she was in her almost late 40s when she played this role. Because she's in her
Uh,
60s now, isn't she?
Pretty sure
And she looks
she was
so great.
she was born in '64.
I have no idea what that is right now, but
Yeah,
she was absolutely great in every scene she was in. She looked great. I liked the work that she had on her, her body. She had the tattoos and everything. I don't know if you noticed that aspect that she has big ass tattoos all over her. And she was a performer herself, and I think that's what the aspect that I don't know if people understood it or not. They're both performers. They're both living a gimmick. They're both living a lifestyle that they're both trying to get away from but can't. One is forced away, and the other one is willing to walk away from her situation. And that's what you see through the parallels in the movie is that you do get that where Mickey Rourke's character could not walk away. So does he live? Does he die? As he jumps off the rope with that heart attack. But we all know as an audience that Marissa Tomei's character just didn't say a word and walked out of her job, quit everything, left shit behind because she had to get away from that so bad because she realized that this relationship she's in was too toxic and she had to go.
I think he thought the same thing. I think he walks away after that, and they kind of ride off into the sunset together.
She
Or
walked away once
huh?
once the match starts and he gets a few licks in on him, and Ernest the Catman starts beating down on him a little bit. She sees how painful it is, not realizing and understanding the aspect of the art of the sell. So she's sitting there seeing her friend, her potential lover, getting hurt, and it shocks her because she only knows a human being outside the ring.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very beautiful moment. Like, I get it. But she left him because when he looks over at before he climbs up on the top rope as he's having the heart attack and climbing up to do the ram jam, he looks over there at the curtain and she's not there. And so you could just see the frustration and just kind of like, fuck it, I'm done. as he climbs up on the road. You know what I mean? You could just see a finality in his face and his body language.
He has an Apollo Creed in the ring, probably.
I agree. Yeah, I think he hits the mat, maybe goes for the cover, and as he's laying there on top, because everything is now settled, 1, 2, 3, and they go to raise his hand.
See, if Vince McMahon directed this movie, it would be called The Entertainer.
Oh yeah,
they're not wrestlers.
The sports entertainer.
We can't call it the wrestler. That's not good.
I just like how for so many centuries, well, not centuries, but decades, since it's been called professional wrestling, all of a sudden during like a 20-year gap of wrestling history, it's not pro wrestling anymore. It's sports entertainment. It's like, what the hell? We just changed the name all of a sudden.
Yeah. They should call, like, if you're like, I know if you get paid for something, you're technically like professional at it, I guess, but they should call, like, with independent wrestlers on your like resume, they should call it like amateur. I'm an amateur wrestler. Some of them don't even get paid, man.
Oh, I know. Dude, I probably got paid like 3 or 4 times as a referee.
I'll do it for 2 hot dogs, a knish, and 2 bags of chips.
Dude, if there was food at the venue, you got lucky because if the promoter, brought like a potluck, or that night, so maybe some nachos or a couple pizzas. Oh, dude, you better be lucky. That was lucky to get paid.
Oh, I bet some of them homegrown people at a lot made you paid for their food.
Oh, yeah, dude, it was crazy.
Yeah, you had to pay for their meat. Hey, this chili that I just scammed out of Sam's, you gotta pay $2.50 for a chili dog. Okay. You gotta see it.
Yeah, see, that's the dude. I have being involved in the wrestling business. I have even had a church scam the wrestling promotion.
There you go.
So that tells you how shady the wrestling business is. So that tells you that this movie didn't give you the complete story of how shady wrestling can be. It's,
I think that's probably another scene that I probably would have said I would have want in this movie. I would have liked to see Randy the Ram get rammed, if you know what I mean. Like, I would have liked to see him get cheated out of something.
Oh yeah, well he did. He did the very opening scene. Do you remember that?
Well, yeah,
he gets screwed out of money in the very opening scene. He's over there just chilling. The dude's like, "We did have a big enough gig, so I can't pay you all I owe you." So
which is unfortunate.
We don't even know Randy's going rate. We're just assuming, because I think it honestly took him about a month to gather up enough money to get inside of his trailer.
I'm going to say his going rate is $150 a night.
Oh, I'd say it's more than that because you know who Abyss is, right?
Yes.
His nightly rate was $700.
We are talking about somebody who is like, but that I can see that though because he was just on national TV like 10 years ago. If we're talking,
Nugget, I think was like $2,000.
Terrible. Who would pay? Hey, that's a whole nother conversation. Oh my God, that's a whole nother conversation.
So you got he was probably making anywhere from $8,000 to $1,000 a show, just off name recognition alone.
That's disgusting. That might be too harsh, but Jim Duggan.
Yeah, he's expensive, bro.
I mean, no. Who in the right mind would even promote something like that on their show?
Jim, he draws, which is crazy.
Man, I can draw too, but only stick figures.
No, Hacksaw draws big time, bro. It's weird. Jake Stick's still a big draw.
That's gross. I wouldn't give those guys any of my money.
So, hey.
Would you?
Well, I've seen Jake live in person, so I guess I have given Jake the money.
No, I'm not talking about like that, but I'm talking about like I wouldn't give them that much money to come perform at my show.
Oh no.
No.
I think Gangrel was like $900. So
gross. 900, you probably wouldn't even make that back at the gate.
So that's what I'm saying. A lot of places in Oklahoma when they book, because I've seen a lot of these people in Oklahoma, And when they booked these guys, the shows were there was nobody really there. I've seen homegrown Oklahoma talent pull more than a guy that had a little bit of name recognition because he wrestled on WrestleMania 6.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So those were our favorite scenes. Back to the wrestler as far as the film goes. Star rating. I dug this movie, man. Like I said, I thought the performances were great. The chemistry between Mickey Rourke and Marissa Tomei, the characters. Not only are they in that situation together, but as actors and actresses, it's like, man, they're still trying to get jobs like that now, So it's like it was almost like just like last week, art imitating life, life imitating art. Um, Cinematography was fantastic. I would give this movie, watching it now, it's my first watch in a few years. I'll probably give it a 4.
All right.
I'm gonna give it a nice 4. I think, it's in and out. It doesn't drag. The only kind of scenes that I did not care for again were the scenes with the daughter. But I'm gonna give it a 4. That's where I stand. What about you?
So I'm gonna give it a 4.5 just for the fact, like I said, getting ready to start the business and starting the backyard wrestling up around being around that around this time to start, like I said, going into the business. It was my first introduction to the legit business and all the boys in the business that they're going down. That's pretty true, and all that. So I looked at it that way. And then after being in the business for a little bit and been like, okay, so yeah, it is very true, how the movie is presented. You know, is it an exaggerated version? In some cases, but in most cases, yes. This portrayal of this character, Mickey Rourke, this most wrestlers in any federation, most wrestlers that I know that like to hang out at the strip club, because they pretty much spend their pay that night at the strip club for a lap dance. So it felt very close to home. So and I agree with you. The cinematography is beautiful. It has a very documentary feel to it. Uh, just the performance by Mickey Rourke, him and his body double, they looked like a legit pro wrestler. Mickey Rourke had the 6-pack abs. He had, how wrestlers get that hard looking body because the years of being slammed around. He looked like he had that.
He probably was slammed around a lot.
So, he was a boxer, in real life. So between boxing and doing the cosmetic surgery, his face is pretty rough. But I get the point behind the daughter and everything. I see that with you. I do agree that it does drag just a hair. They probably could have cut it down just a little bit with her, but we had to have a character outside of his inner circle that he had to try to see if he could fix things with, and then ultimately he couldn't. So
Yeah.
So,
The Wrestler, man. It doesn't get talked about a lot that much anymore. I think it's kind of one of those movies slowly getting forgotten about. But hopefully we did it some justice. You guys want to go check it out? It's easy to access. Go check it out on Hulu and Disney Plus. Next week, though, there should be a fun conversation, Jay. We are talking about Companion. We'll also get into some recent watches and recommendations next week. So I can't wait for this conversation. I have not seen it yet. We're also 6 months away from Halloween, so House of Fears Haunted House is opening up soon. Check them out, social media, also the good San Marcos Mexican restaurants and Red and Blues Pizza. So next week we got a lot to talk about: Companion, recent watches, and I think that's going to be a fun conversation and hopefully a fun movie. So anything to add to The Wrestler before we get out of here?
just enjoy a couple of great performances by Marissa Tomei and Mickey Rourke, and just enjoy a good movie overall.
Yeah.
Sit back and enjoy.
Go check it out, man. Thank you for joining us for a new episode. It's always a pleasure to hang out, talk movies with everybody. April is full of fun movies, so today marked the first of many. Next week, we'll see you on a new episode for Companion. Have a good week. Join us next week for another new episode of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast.